guest today is the giver of awesomeness. And I'm not sure I'm going to do her justice by giving her full introduction, so I'm going to let her tell us a little bit more about herself. Mrs. Raushawna Price, please tell us.
Yes, welcome. Thanks for having me, Tamara. I'm glad to be here. And giver of awesomeness, I always get the question, where did it come from? Who are you? Like, what is it? So giver of awesomeness is my official registered trademark, and it's all about helping people find their awesomeness, the hidden gifts and talents they have, and giving them to the world around them. No need to keep them for yourself. You got to give them. That's how powerful you are.
So she is actually the giver of awesomeness.
Yes.
Did you hear this? It is trademarked, okay?
Yes.
So Raushawna, how did you come up with this idea?
I really didn't. I was in the process of updating my LinkedIn profile, and you know how that can be, where you're sitting there trying to figure out what's your title, what's your company. And so I started thinking, well, who am I? And I was like, okay, Lord, if you want me to be doing this, then help me figure out a title that is not just like another coach or another speaker. And I started thinking about all the things people had been saying to me, all the compliments. You rock, you're awesome, you're amazing, you're such a giver. And it was like giver of awesomeness. And so I said, that'll be cool. I don't even know what that is. I'll figure that out. And then the thought came to trademark it. And so I said, okay, I'll trademark that. And I did.
Yeah, and you have now defined what it is.
And now I've defined what it is. It came on a journey, especially, when you're building a business, sometimes the whole plan is not revealed. It's a little bit here and a little bit there. But what I found is that every person has something awesome in their life, and it could be the worst tragedy ever, but that is actually a gift. It's gold, and that is the thing that they actually need to bring to the world.
That is amazing how that just came to you. I mean, it's in the moments when we're not looking for something great that it shows up, right?
Absolutely. It's kind of like when you're actually looking for the socks and you're looking for the mate and you can't find it. And then when you stop looking, that's exactly where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before you became the trademarked giver of awesomeness.
Yes.
I understand that you have such experience in the business world and HR and so many facets. Can you share a little bit of your experience with us?
Yeah, so I like to live life in the comma. I like to say that the comma, right? When we were growing up, we were told, what do you want to be? And you had to pick one thing.
Right.
I've been several things, and I continue to add commas to that. So I have 2 degrees, industrial and systems engineering, a bachelor's and a master's. I went to North Carolina A&T undergrad and Purdue University for grad school, studied ergonomics, human factors, designed equipment, all these great things. And then I transitioned my career and went into public education.
Wow.
In the 15th largest public school system in the country, serving over 170,000 students, 19,000 employees, and I was the talent acquisition senior director, where I was responsible for hiring all of those employees and making sure that they were where they were and where they needed to be. And so throughout my career, I've always helped people, worked with people, designed equipment for people, guided people in their thinking and their actions. So that's been the consistent thread throughout my career.
So you're a people person. That's what I'm getting from this.
I'm a total people person. I'm the person that after being with a lot of people, rather than going home and going to sleep, I'm up for hours. I have to come down off of the high of being with people.
I can attest she's a people person. She has great energy. I love it.
Yes.
I love it. So how does that tie in, your experience and just being that connecting factor for a lot of people? How does that tie in to being the giver of awesomeness?
It's because I'm constantly looking and listening for how people talk about themselves. Because how you talk about yourself is really the inner belief of what you have or don't have. And it gives me then an opportunity to shed light on actually you are something else. So let me give you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
So oftentimes I hear people say, well, I'm just the worker at McDonald's. Well, no, you're not. You are a part of the service experience, or I'm just the assistant manager, or I'm just the mom at home, or I'm just starting my business.
Right.
All of that is it might be where you are, but it's not a just, it's the beginning. And if you take the just out, you can then move forward. I tell my son all the time, the just is a settle. And if you take that out, you can move forward quickly. Meaning, I'm starting my business. That changes the whole sentence.
Yeah.
I am the mom that stays at home. I am the service director. I am the customer service manager. Great.
I feel like that just takes away from your influence.
It does. And in the back of your mind, in your subconscious, and I talk a lot about the mind and the brain and how it processes information, when you tell yourself just, it's as though you're saying to yourself, settle, sit down, you can't.
Correct.
And your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference, and it always wants to prove you right.
Yes.
So if you tell it, I'm just, then it's going to look for all the ways in which you aren't. But if you say, I am, I'm doing this, then you will.
Right. Okay. So you're creating that limit, that stopping point by saying, I am just this.
Yes. And you can do it to yourself, or depending on the community that you were raised in and how you are brought up, or even your circle of friends now, that could be put on you. And you could be believing something about yourself that you don't even know, that you don't even realize.
Right.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about changing perspectives, and just what Raushawna said, when you have that just in that statement and that thought and that the way you see yourself, it changes what you can achieve, right? It changes what type of goals you set for yourself. It changes where you see yourself in the future. So changing that statement, that thought is very, very key.
It's key. It's the engineer in me says reverse engineer it and talk about yourself where you want to be as though you are. So if you know you want a business that's thriving, then you say, I'm a business owner. That's what you say. I'm a business owner. I'm thriving. It's in the black. Even if it's not yet, if you say that every day, you're going to go and create that. You're going to get closer to it.
Right.
And that's how you build success that you can feel good about versus building success that you privately feel ashamed of.
Yes. So right now, okay, you've done all of this, you've had all of this experience, you're tied it into this great Giver of Awesomeness trademarked title, which I love.
Yes.
What do you do right now?
So I primarily speak in public or at events and talk about this concept of being a giver of awesomeness and helping people understand that sometimes the awesomeness comes through adversity and adult bullying. And the other thing I do is coach people, and I coach them on how do they change their thinking and bring their awesomeness forward. And I do that a lot with individuals, with companies, and I use my book that I recently authored to talk about that as well.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit, well, before we do that, can you read us something out of your book that will drive our discussion?
Yes. So one thing about this book is I wrote it in 4 months, and so I like to debunk that myth right away, that it doesn't take forever. And if you're out there listening to any of your listeners who think those people, they write books, you too can be an author.
Yeah.
So that's number one. The second thing is that in the book I talk about awesomeness stealers.
Yes.
These are people who steal your gifts and talents. You might not even know that you have them, but they know that you have them and they come for them. So let me read to you about one of the awesomeness stealers that I call the minimizer.
I am ready.
All right. Minimizers get joy out of making you feel small. They make you feel like what you do is not enough. You try to adjust to the feedback and it's still not right. I was second guessing every decision, and that was not me. You know you've encountered a minimizer if what you used to do seemed easy and it's now challenging, and you feel small on the inside. When you leave this person, you feel like the walls around you are closing in.
Wow. I just had to take a moment to think about that for a second. So as adults, we never see ourselves, or we try our best not to see ourselves as being bullied, right? And I specifically remember, we were talking about a scenario at work, and I said, well, it was intimidating, but it wasn't bullying, right? We use all different types of words and synonyms just so we don't use the word bully, but there is such a thing, and you help people deal with that.
I do, because you have to call a thing a thing. And as adults, the semantics of it, right? Like, oh, well, it was intimidating, or I had to walk on eggshells, or even with a manager, you're like, oh, well, that's just how they are. No, that's what we've allowed them to be or what we've tolerated. And it doesn't have to be that way. And anytime you're with a bully or an awesomeness stealer, you'll know because you'll start to do what I call the turtle effect, where you just quietly start to go into your shell. You pull back from the table. Sometimes in meetings you can see it. People get on their phones all the time. It's like, avoid this situation. It's getting escalated. Right. And people don't think, well, that's bullying. They're just like, oh, that's just how the meeting is, or this is the awkward part. But it doesn't have to be that way.
See, I can relate to that because I actually had someone, I had an associate come up to me the other day and she said that your personality's out. I see you in a different light now because when she met me about a year ago, I was very reserved because of some bad experiences I've had with people. So I wasn't as outgoing. I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, it's what happens in your mind is the same thing, just like when you touch a hot stove. And the next time you're like, oh, I'm going to be more careful. The same thing happens when we experience bullying and we don't even know it. Our subconscious mind, again, wants to keep us safe. So you're going to show up from a place of hold back, be reserved, don't say too much. It's not safe.
Right. So I really feel what you do is extremely important. But in your own words, tell us, how does that impact your community? How do you think what you do impacts your community?
It impacts the community because if everyone does not know that they have a gift or a talent, then they don't bring it out to the community, which means businesses aren't born or grown. People play small, feel like they have to keep their world in a 5-mile radius. And we see this a lot when we think about, even from a socioeconomic standpoint, those that live in poverty tend to continue to live in poverty because they feel like they can't do anything more. And it doesn't mean that they can't. It just means that they haven't yet activated that awesomeness to help them move forward, to ask for the help that they need. And on the other end of it, even people that have a ton of money still don't do what they need to do to activate their awesomeness because they feel like they're not worthy of what they have. And so it impacts everyone.
Yeah. Raushawna, we left off and we were going to talk about how what you do impact businesses.
Yes. Businesses hire people, individuals. And there is a return on investment when you hire someone and they stay for a long period of time. If they leave and you have high turnover, retention, you are constantly investing in job searches, interview time, the onboarding process, all of that. And so when you are thinking about your culture, your company's culture, your organizational culture, thinking about awesomeness stealers that are managers, that are leaders is important, but also thinking about the awesomeness that you want to hire, those gifts, those talents that you need is critical to growing businesses, which then grow communities.
So if you've been at a job and instead of, you're not the type of person to confront, maybe an intimidating manager, but you might find yourself after a certain period of time, you can't take it anymore. You just go search for another job.
Right. And so in research shows that. So what happens is, let's think about it. We'll use how Jack Welch from GE talks about the different types of individuals that you have in an organization. A players, B players, and C players.
Right.
That's how he talks about it in his book. And so if you have A players, these are your critical contributors. These are the people that are high potential, that should be growing, and are succession planning people. You've got B players, they're consistent, you need them, they do a lot, they are anchors. And then you have C players, those are the people that are on the cusp, and they might exit. Your A players, when they experience that, what you talked about, they have a minimizer bully boss, they feel like they are undervalued and underappreciated. 9 times out of 10, they aren't going to HR and talking to someone. They know that they're talented.
Yes.
And so they take their talents and they vote with their feet and they exit. They quietly just pull back from the table and they get another offer and they're gone. And so when organizations don't take the time to really assess the culture on different teams and overall, what happens is you could find that over time, your talent pool is eroded and you have B players, good people, and C players that can't lead. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense to me. And I feel like as business owners, part of the stability of our business comes from our employees and knowing where they stand, and what you just said, understanding your type of employees, what their needs are, how to communicate with them.
Yep.
And if they're in a situation where you have someone with an extremely strong personality with a tendency to bully, and maybe they don't even know they're bullying, right? Have a way to reel them back, coach them. So you need someone like Raushawna who could come in and identify those issues and help with that conversation, right?
Absolutely. Coaching is a great way to help leaders develop individually, but also for their team as well. Because not everyone is going to be understanding of someone who has a bold personality, but you do need a bold personality when you are leading.
Right.
So it's all about situational leadership. And that's just not in style. That's in how you then relate to everyone else around you. The same is true on the other side of it. If you have a leader that is too timid and they're in a position of authority and there is someone that's an A player that is then taking over as leader without title, the culture and the balance can be off. And so influence is leadership, nothing more, nothing less. That's what John Maxwell talks about.
Yeah.
And so when someone else is influencing who actually doesn't have the title, but they have the move of the team, you could find that a leader that has a position is actually not the one that's making decisions. And so for organizations that have a vision and they want to cascade that vision through the organization, if the leader that's actually at the table is not the one with influence, someone else is, that's when the vision stops.
Right.
Because the other person doesn't understand that vision and they aren't really the ones that are making the calls.
Right. They're not welcome to that meeting because they don't have that title.
Because they don't have that title,
Right.
but then
to share in it.
But they're shifting the culture.
Yes.
It just might be in a way that is away from the intended purpose or the vision.
Yeah. Okay. Raushawna, I've spoken to you plenty of times, and it's always great conversations. But I have to say today, I have learned something new.
Oh,
I've
good.
learned a few new things today.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm hoping everybody listening today, have gleaned something that is very important from what she's saying. And just the part of her book when she spoke about the minimizers, we may not see ourselves as, being bullied, right? Maybe we don't like that term, but maybe there's someone who's minimizing us, right? So Raushawna's book is called Be a Giver of Awesomeness. It's a fast read, and there's a lot of good information in there. So if you guys are interested, definitely seek out that book. Raushawna, where could they find your book?
You can find my book on Amazon. You can also find it in parkroadsbooks.com. That is a local bookstore that ships all across the United States. So I love shopping local.
Yes.
So I have my book in a small bookstore in Charlotte, and I also have it on Amazon for those that would like to purchase.
Way to grow a community.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So do you have any tips or offers that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Yes. So when we think about being a giver of awesomeness, there are 7 secrets to awesomeness living that everyone needs to know and start to put in place. I'll give you the first one, and then I'll show you and I'll tell you how you can get the others. So the first is to set a foundation. When you think about your life and the belief systems that you hold, you may have things in your life from your childhood. So one of the things I realized was when I was growing up, my parents would say, cleanliness is next to godliness.
Yes.
Were you raised that way
Yes.
too? Yeah. Okay, so that's not even in the Bible. It's just a great saying. And I realized when I was growing up, and then when I started my career and working and family, I was trying to do all these things, clean all these things. I don't do that anymore.
Right.
Because it doesn't need to be in my foundation, because that is not the belief that's actually going to serve me based on where I want my life to go.
Right.
So when we think about awesomeness living, there are 7 secrets. So go to giverofawesomeness.co. That's giverofawesomeness.co. and get my free ebook, The 7 Secrets to Awesomeness Living, so that you can walk through the 7 secrets and get what you need to get your foundation going. And this is the start of understanding your awesomeness.
So just to be redundant, that's an awesome offer. So definitely, it is giverofawesomeness.co. Please go ahead, get that book. You don't want to miss that type of information that Raushawna is providing us today. Well, Raushawna, I want to say thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I love this show. I appreciate all that you do.